This King-KAMBUF, 100 proof, bringing you nothing but the truth. We still deep diving in the land of architecture. This is programming, planning, and practice. Lesson number 4, building prototypes. The introduction, the objection, the objective of the building program is to state the function and purpose of the building must serve. Let's say that again. The objective of the building program is to state the function and the purpose that the building must serve. To achieve this, the person writing the program must be aware of the uses to which the building will be put into functional criteria and applied during the preliminary design phase. This data is elevated, evaluated in relation to the task demands and the addition of what is feasible. In all cases, the individual is the measure of the space, since the design of the building involves solving problems of human, functional, and space physical environments. In order to consider three-dimensional spaces, we must first consider the size of who and who will use the space, shown in figure 4.2. On the dimensionals of typical adult male, the measurements establish the dimensional standards of all architecture, from 36 inches wide doorways to 7 inches high stairway risers. Although humans are quite adaptable to various dimensional standards, excessive deviation from the norm can cause physiological and psychological stress. The needs of the people to chief priority. Thus, humans' dimensions must be considered. First, spatial dimensions. Second, on both of these before the final building dimensions. Okay, hold on. One more time. And then maybe we can really dive. In order to consider three-dimensional spaces, we must first consider the size of those who will use the spaces. The dimensions of typical adult males. These measurements establish the dimensional standards of all architecture, from 36 inches wide doorways to the 7-inch high risers. Although humans are quite adaptable to varying dimension standards, excessive deviation from normal can cause physiological and psychological stresses. This needs of people are the chief priority. Thus, humans' dimensions must be considered first. Spatial dimensions second, and both of these before the final building dimension. These architectural programming involves the process of collecting and organizing information in order to clearly define the problem, the building problem. This in turn makes it possible to solve the design problem within the limitations imposed by the site, budget, and other considerations. To develop the optimal building design, one must know the functional criteria of the common building types that are frequently encountered. Several of these are described below. Let's dance for a little bit though, then we'll get going on this. We're gonna get into housing. And that's a long pause right there at the end of each string. Here we go. Housing. Housing is the most fundamental of all building types. It can be found isolated in rural areas, grouped in compact rows, or arranged in vertical high rises, stacked. Its function is to provide an environment in which people live and sleep, eat, bathe, cook, read, entertain themselves, and satisfy a myriad of other needs. The outstanding functional problem of housing is that many of these diverse activities occur simultaneously, often in the same space. Residential space, therefore, must be designed for flexibility. A child's bedroom, for example, may function for sleep, as a study and a meeting room for peers, a music room for practicing instruments, and an exercise room. Kitchens and bathrooms, which are generally limited in size, are often fixed in arrangements, may also serve functions in addition to those food preparations and body hygiene. In addition, the functional aspects of the dwelling one must first determine which spaces are required. Second, how much space is required. Third, how people will circulate from one space to another. Personal taste. Outside of this, all dwellings require certain basic furniture and equipment in order to satisfy their basic human functions, and the size and arrangements of these have become familiar, fairly standard over the years. The dimensions of spaces include circulations have been established by using habitat and comfort. Dining spaces, for example, require a minimum of 2 feet of table width per person, as well as 3 feet from the table to the wall, so that one can move the chair back when leaving the table. People in general are unaware of these dimensions when they are correct, but when they are very much aware of them when the substandard situation causes discomfort. The arrangement of spaces within a dwelling follows a conventional pattern. Bathrooms, for example, are located adjacent to bedrooms since their functions are closely related. Likewise, a dining area should be next to a kitchen. In fact, the two areas often occupy the same space. While some functions require close proximity, others may need separation. Noisy home workshops, for example, should be separated from bedrooms. Of course, apartment buildings, being groups of dwellings, units, must function as the needs of individual families of groups and families. Multi-families living require lobbies, corridors, and open space. For example, the circulation as well as shared service elements such as boiler rooms or refuse disposal areas. Increased density requires special designs, considerations to maintain privacy between units. Again, it also requires careful design for efficient circulation in public vestibules of garages and individual dwelling units. The shape and the size of individual apartments units determines the feasibility of the project. Standardized or repetitive units with simple shapes help minimize the number of party walls. Will be compact overall shapes reduce energy requirements. However, the livability of individual apartment units must be the basis of the design if the project is to have a lasting value. Efficiency. Apartments should be located near the elevators, while multi-bedroom apartments are best located at the end of the building corridor. Such as arrangements, larger apartments can have multiple exterior exposures, and the length of public corridors and will be reduced as well as possible. Similar units should be placed back to back to economize mechanical servicing and archive consistencies in construction. Similarity services are often combined vertically, such as elevators, refusal chutes, flutes, standpipes, and stairways. Ground floor spaces require large unobstructed areas to permit convenient circulation to elevators, stairways, garages, mailrooms, story rooms, laundries, and similar shared spaces and similar accesses. Areas in apartment buildings should be well illuminated, clearly marked, and secure. Then let's dive into hotels. The basic function of a hotel is to provide a comfortable night's rest, together with dining, entertainment, and meeting facility, all pleasant surroundings. Hotels are divided into two major functional components: the building, public areas in which guests enter, dine, and socialize, and the service area where food is prepared and other service functions are performed. As a general plan and practice, the public circulation, whereas separated from the service circulation areas. And the fact guests should not even be aware of the service areas and operations vital through they may be the separate from the irritated, related, and the irrelated, the sakes of efficiency and the profitability in the entire facility. The services proportions of the hotel is critical. It must be laid out with the objectives and control of efficiency. It is here delivered for the services of supplies are made, food is stored and prepared, laundry or cleaning or done, housekeeping facilities. They're organized, the mechanical equipment is housed here also located, administrative offices located, locker rooms, banquet services, rooms, trash disposal, etc. The public proportion of the hotel comprise all the areas that guests use, such as lobbies, dining spaces, restrooms, passenger, elevators, corridor, guest rooms, etc. Each facility must be planned with convenience of the guest in mind. In addition, every service must form a registration desk to the coffee shop, must arrange that the location is readily apparent to the guests and confusion is eliminated from the hotel entry and registration area. A guest should be able to find the elevators easily and proceed to one individual room. You see, the elevator should be located centrally in order to minimize walking distance. Corridors, usually about 6 feet wide, should not exceed 100 feet in length. Guest rooms should be designed to be comfortable. Room size is determined by the class of the hotel and the degree of the comfort being provided. The key unit of this measure in a hotel room is the bed size with width and the range for the 1/2 bed feet. A single bed is 6 feet. A king bed lengths range from 6.5 to 7 feet with longer dimensions. The fast becoming the standard. Optimal room width is about 12.5 feet, while optimal lift varies from 14 to 20, depending on the room layout. The bathroom should be ample, carefully arranged, and designed to satisfy the needs of the guests, who generally quiet, sensitive to the overall quality and accommodation. It is important that the bathroom be designed with guest safety in mind. Grab bars, non-skid tubs, properly located and grounded electrical features, etc. Closets, too, must be planned with the guest's minds in need. The longer the duration of the stay, the larger the closet must be. Obviously, closet size in a resort hotel and a highway motel will be considerably different. The typical guest room floor also includes a service space designed to serve the entire floor. It is here that the towels and the linens are stacked, maid carts are parked, and cleaning supplies are stored. It is desirable to have the service elevator open directly into this area so that the service functions remain out of sight. Shopping centers. The concept of a grounds mini shops in a place of existence throughout history. Ancient Greeks, Agoria has a counterpart we see in Arab Bazaar, the native markets of Mexico, and indeed the American shopping center as a building type. However, the shopping center is entirely a 20th century development. It first be characterized as a group of retail shops with limited number of services, recreational, entertainment, and dining establishments, all oriented to the access by automobile. It is a suburban phenomenon. The various types of centers, neighborhoods, communities, and regionals are similar in spirit and concept, but quite different in overall size, scale, and arrangement. A primary program, objectives, and creation of convenient and attractive projects which offer maximum merchandising potential. The constituents, tenant stores, the common features of contemporary shopping centers as the pedestrian mall or shopping streets. The mall may be on one level and two more superimposed levels with the principal access of all stores facing the mall. Some malls are open with minimum weather protection. However, in most locations, they are completely enclosed and climate is controlled mechanically. Enclosed malls may be in the form of broad courts or lengthy streets. The street type of mall is 30 to 40 feet wide and maximum 800 feet long. Between department stores, between each anchor major retail center and planned or two or more levels, malls should have convenient access to all levels. The surrounding parking areas as well as adequate vertical connections between levels, preferably by means of escalator. We see a significant planning dimensions along the malls of the length of individual storefronts in which varies to 20 to 30 feet. Stores may be 120 to 140 feet or more when accommodating large stores. Large stores, shallow depths of smaller shops may result in L-shaped configurations with a large store wrapped around a smaller one. Clear ceilings hesitates height standards about 12 feet. The standard tenant mix refers to the variety of the store types of facilities in the shopping center. A suitable tenant mix is one of the offers customers varieties of different types of complementaries, types of merchandise is ordered to maximum volumes and sales. The highest sale volume realized as well, balanced and complementary to the price of the goods. The maximum of the retail service facilities. This is true for all shopping centers, whether large or small. The shopping center must be the convenient access. The difficulty of parking in the downtown area was in fact one of the original factors that led to the shopping center concept. Adequate and convenient parking, therefore, is an essential requirement for any shopping facility. In suburban areas where almost all customers come, private automobile, a ratio of 5 to 6 cars per space in 1,000 square foot of retail store area is mandatory. This means that for every square foot of retail floor, there must be at least 2 or more square feet of parking space. There is a good system of regional public transportation, as some of older cities and where walk-in trade represents a large percentage of customers. The parking ratio can be reduced. Parking may be one of the several levels, others above or below grade. Two-way traffic is more convenient for customers but may be less safe and more difficult to use than one-way angular layouts. Only large downtown department stores are likely to have their own parking garages. Usually a downtown retail merchant group will operate a collective parking system, or a municipality or a private parking company will manage this function. This properly planning in shopping centers requires the separation of pedestrians, whereas the vehicular areas, the movement of vehicles create dangers, fumes, noise, confusions, and can distract shoppers and diminish shopping enjoyment. Service and traffic too, including delivery vehicles, trash collectors. Service vehicles must be segregated from customer circulation, such as vehicles may be accommodated in special service areas, service roads, or some cases service tunnels, such as systems that have high initial costs, but in the large shopping centers they can be cost effective. Access to public transportation, such as they incorporated into the overall planning of the shopping center. That is the facts. Shoppers serve confidently, conveniently. Schools. Here we go. School buildings are places for young people to learn, work, and play, communicate and mature and develop in an intellectual way, socially and physically. Skills and effective learning environments requires a broad range of special qualities that must be considered in the building program. Sensory aspects such as temperature, visibility, the acoustics must be also given proper consideration. In addition, the school buildings should include environment qualities such as human scale, warmth, stimulation, and repose. All of the stimulated human development. The programmatic requirements for school reflects the combined physiologies of the local board of education and school administration. The community group, their attitudes provide the basis of the architect's design program. Among the criteria to design consider are the neighborhood character and the growth rate of the community and the educational program and the range of probable extracurricular activities. These may include adult evening classes, PTA meetings, public lectures, concerts, and other educational, cultural, social, recreational, or civic functions. All of the influence the program and hence the form of the school. It is size, teach staff, scheduling, organization, methods, and special facilities. The objective of the program is of a school building is to describe the physical spaces required, the use of these spaces, their functional relationship, the number of students, the equipment, the needs of each space. To serve the specific efficiencies of the architect must be familiar with the teaching's methods, likely and employ the critical influences of spaces, needs, room sizes, and building types. Teams teaching examples, larger rooms every night, open to flexible spaces and convenient teachings through experience, through spatial standards. Variouses have the developments in school planning, such as the number of students per teacher, the number of students per teacher, stations per student by type of space and gross square foot per teacher and student per cost per student. Hold on. Here we go. The objective of the programming. Hold on. The objective of programming a school building is to describe the physical space requirements, the use of the spaces, their functional relationships, and the number of students and equipment needs. It's each space to serve the purpose effectively. The architect must be familiar with the teachings methods likely to be employed. This is the critical influence on the space needs, room size, and building types. Team teaching examples requires larger, more open, and more flexible spaces than conventional teachings through experiences. Various spatial standards have been developed in school planning, such as the number of students per teacher, the number of students per teaching station, area per student by type of space, gross square foot per student, and cost per student. As a part of the programming process, optimum classroom capacity must be established. This may range from 20 pupils in a kindergarten to 40 students in a high school physical classroom education class. Class sizes may vary, but the characteristics of the classroom or subject being taught and common practice derived from the experience all help determine the desirable capacity. Classrooms vary in size from 800 to over 1,000 square feet. Academy classrooms are required to quiet locations such as by separated noise activities such as gymnasiums, playing fields, and band practicing rooms. Classroom areas should be flexible and have sufficient space for specific projects, teachers, demonstrations, equipment, storages, access to the classroom, as well as emergency exits should be directly corridors, stairways, and assemblies around to the most efficiency, safe, arrange, and encourages social interchange due to the nature of the occupancy and the use of schools require particular high standards of safety. The high priority of high safety provisions, safex, the form of the organization and the appearance of the school building and the considerable extent of educational facilities. Planning requires the space to be flexible, readily adaptable to the future uses and arrangements, and the plan of the concepts and the examples of permits and groups of various sizes work together or separate, and when space is shared by several groups simultaneously, it also promotes cooperation along with flexibility. Educational environment should be designed in comfort, efficiency, and the functional needs of students, teachers, and the administration. Churches. Church plans are determined by the form of the various rituals in which they are accommodating the various considerable between faiths in every which of them. However, the most faiths an altar is the focal of the congregational congregation. Most religions are required visual or oral contact between those who lead the service and the congregation. This is for the reason where they should be clear-sighted in the sanctuary as well as good acoustics. Many religious buildings also serve a community or social centers for their members, providing educational, cultural, sports, and other activities. Seating design is particularly determined by the elements of the service, the requirements, periods of the standing and kneeling, as well as the non-religious uses of the church must accommodate the conventional pews. Normal service for booths, multi-use requirements may suggest individual folding, stacking chairs, which necessitates storage space, but generally allows more seating space per person. The most common Christian church plan format is the rectangle with the altar at one end and seating in the rows oriented towards the principal focal point, the single or central aisle, together with aisles aside. The customary in churches of the modern size, the congregation exceeds 500 people. The rectangular plan increases. Arrangements may require modification, much as the elevated pulpit or mezzanine in places in order to maintain the contact between congregations and the service of that. The cruciform plans and the long historical precedence, and it continues to serve effectively today. The altar may be located at a cross, and the naive and the transplant at the head, and at the head of the cross, the seating arrangements, however, must be such as to engender a sense of congregational unity. Another type of plan is the circular form we see based on the concept of encircling the congregation. Similar to the theater in the round, the shaping has a sense of intimacy and unity, but has several shortcomings. Seating layouts are slightly lined and may be awkward from some ceremonial functions, such as those utilizing processions, may be difficult to conduct. However, a circular form can be useful for social activities. For all religion buildings, spaces must be provided for multiple support activities in addition to the major areas of worship, such as spaces and entire entry and vestibules, sacristy, choir rooms, meeting rooms, storage rooms, classrooms, office, lounges, toilets, mechanical spaces must be all provided. Religious schools consist of classrooms which also functions as multiple use areas to accommodate activities such as crafts, hobbies, recreations, dramas, and musical programs. The number of pupils and the type of schools determine the number of classrooms required. Classrooms are generally similar in size, and the teacher-student ratio to those conveniently used in public schools. Churches generally include facilities for community and social functions, such as the social hall with a stage, and the social hall should be planned with a multiple use space with removable seating and facilitating the shown films and shoes in sufficient sizes and shapes to accommodate large groups. Finally, the constituents, designers, the consciously designs of the most sensitive to be different religions in our society. These different religions have different practices which require various architectural expressions. Okay. Theaters. A theater is a space in which people may view various performances, including plays, operas, too, concerts, movies, recitals, lectures. It is not generally practical to use one type of theater to accommodate all performing arts. Desirable music reverberation time, for example, demands a greater spatial volume than that needed for the spoken word. Appropriate stage dimensions, seating arrangements, and sight lines all vary from the type of performance. Therefore, so-called multi-use auditoriums is limited in the ability to accommodate all types of performances in order for the audience to see and hear satisfactorily. The dimensions have to be clear. The geometry of the seating area and the stage must be carefully coordinated on the stage. The common space and practices is the curve to rows of seats that the center of curvature is located on the center line of the auditorium. These establishes a good viewing relationship between adjacents and the audience and the stage. It is also common to practice the stagger seating in adjacency rows to those no person sits directly in front of the other person. I get this. Aisles are necessary for access to seats for egress in the emergency evacuation. A center aisle's waist must be desirable. Seating areas where the theater must be unavoidable because the availability of theater space. Continental seating must be permitted in some localities provide wide space continuous rows. This makes it possible to have transverse circulation and eliminates the need for longitudinal aisles. The cut through the seating areas with optimal layouts. The general determining of testing several alternative layouts. The size of the theater includes the relationship between individuals in individuals' depth of housing, width, and poisoniums, and determined by several imperial formulas and variables. Typical standards introduced. The optimum house depth equals the 4 to 5 times the stage within. Depths of equals about the twice of the house width, and the house width in the 3 times in the stage. In legitimate theaters, that is the light performance of the maximum house depth practice and based upon the visibility of 75 feet. In contrast with a certain types of performance such as this, where if the spectaculars in the presented in the maximum viewing distance of the house depth and the far greater speculature of the radio center music hall of New York City Center. The example may be seated up 200 feet from the stage. Slightly lines determine proximals plays and house and visibility limits of house capacity determines depth in minimum distances from the stage in the first row for determining by vertical angles of 30 degrees. Floor slope as determined in a variety of ways with the objective that all patrons have an unobstructed view. The stage proper is composed of acting areas in which the actors performs the scenery space, whereas the scenery props in the control rooms are located in the workers' stage space, which includes dressing rooms, costume and rehearsal rooms, shops, loading docks. All of these spaces have functional relationships that must be logically arranged. Now we get into parking centers, parking facilities. Automobile parking's a major consideration in all site development, including central city areas, which are also served by public transportation. In such cases, ground level parking lot may provide sufficient capacity, but whereas land cost is high, the parking demand intensive. A multi-level garage structure may be required in some central urban areas. The high construction cost of an underground facility may be justified. Examples are found in the major cities. As a general rule, a surface parking space costs approximately one-fifth of how much the average automobile will be. A parking structure space costs about the same as the average automobile, and the underground parking structure car space costs twice that. After many years, it has been found that the multi-floor garage system, whether above ground or below, a gradually sloped or ramp floor system is most desirable. However, it may be necessary to use spiral or straight circulation ramps to steep the slope and tight turns, and durable spiral systems which segregate the downward traffic flow. Ramps grades in maximum of 8% to 4.5 degrees, which the steep angles can negotiate conveniently. The layout of the parking area should be designed to maximum travel length 100 feet and extra traveling time with those that the parking stall adds 7.5 seconds though the driving time and 20 seconds to walking time, thus reduces the attendance parking rate by 1.5 hours, and also increases the congestion during normal rush hours. For self-parking lots, walking distances should not exceed 300 feet in the parking lot. Indeed, to the entrance point in the larger garage elevator, an escalator may be required. 90% of parking must be often used efficiently to prevent two-way traffic flows. Parking stalls and layouts and accommodate larger cars. Some projects provide smaller spaces for compact cars, but it is often difficult to regulate stall usage according to the automobile size. Parking stalls should be minimized at 8.4 feet inches in wide and generally 8 to 20 feet long. Installs should be at least 1 foot wider. 90% degree stalls 90-degree stall aisles should be no less than 24 feet wide. Thus, the overall width in the aisles must be stalled on either side of the approximate 62 feet. It is also determined desirable that the 62 foot of the free column free ramps approach and the departure angles, turning radii, the driveway specifications are all critical and must be considered in the layout of the parking garages. If the facility is difficult or dangerous to use, people will avoid it and its usefulness will be diminished. The sight lines with the garage structures should also have a given special design attention. Long, clear sight lines make it easier for the drivers to locate an empty parking space, and a well is improving safety. No less important, to facilitate internal security, control areas as well as must be located within the regarded efficiency and safety. There must be spaces to drop off cars, stack waiting automobiles off the street, collecting fees, and maintain safe separations between moving cars and pedestrians. Next style of building, hospitals. Let's see how you're feeling. Programming a hospital is enormously complex since the type of facility consists of many highly specialized components. The extent of services and kinds of equipment necessary for the optimum space requirements vary from one hospital to another. However, certain facilities and equipment require a common to all hospitals and determine a critical organization of space space. The common characteristic of hospital is the need to expand the large increments of average American hospitals. In fact, a triple of organizing original size due to the periodic expansion. The basic hospital bedroom unit, including toilet facilities, varies in floor area from 150 square feet for the single room to 200 square feet. The double room of the most of 400 square feet. Four bedrooms. Depth in the rooms varies from 15 to 22 feet depending on the number of beds. Mechanical service fenestration. Single rooms may be minimized into 10 feet wide, while double rooms measured at least 12 feet wide. Four bedrooms are generally twice the width, since their layouts is approximately the same as the double of it. Rooms with the divided proportions. All rooms must be included individual wardrobes and storage of patients' clothes. The next move must be important architectural consideration is the provision and arrangements for mechanical services. Although some older hospitals lack individual patient facilities of toilet measurements about 3 by 5 feet in content, connecting each room is now regarded as necessity. Toilet rooms that are shared by adjoining bedrooms may converge in space, reduce initial construction costs. However, this arrangement usually disturbs patients' lack of privacy and requires segregation of room assignments by sex. Standard hospitals bedrooms doors and 4 feet wide in order to allow the passage of beds. Windows, however, may offer consider in size depending on the climate, orientation, aesthetics, and the economics condition. Room finishes may vary, but in all cases should be designed with ease of maintenance, durability, and initial cost. The most common preference for gypsum board walls that are either painted or covered with a vinyl fabric. It is particularly important that the interior detail be smooth as possible and free of crevices, which creates ideal breeding places for germs. One of the more conventional floor plans for a typical patient care floor is durable corridors, nursing units in the layout, patients' rooms, the arrangements long and length of both sides. Floor is separated by central services cores composed of nursing stations, storages, and supply rooms, equipment rooms, toilets, and other related spaces. The common plan types are closely relationships between patients, rooms, and service areas, while safety activity is localized, thereby reducing both movement and noise in patient corridors. This layout also permits flexibility and segregation of patients according to medical conditions, and number of beds per stations ranges between 25 to 35. The circulation within the spatial is the complex of the continuous efficiency can very often be determined. The difference between life and death. It is regarded the architect's most considerable corridor width, location of intensive care facilities, placements of elevators and storeways, the intentional and various support areas. In addition to patient rooms, hospital programming involves the complex functions of surgical suites and pediatric units, diagnostics and x-ray suites, therapy rooms, laboratories, examinations, and treatment rooms. Other considerations include administrative offices, staff facilities, parking areas, access, circulation, and control. The summary, the buildings described in this lesson represents a range of types that an examination candidate might encounter. While it is obvious not to possibly include every building type in each specification, functional requirement, the programming process in each case is similar. One must collect all pertinent and functional data qualitatively as well as quantitatively and organize them in the final determinant for relationship. From this exercise, a sound realistic program may be developed and defined. This is KING-KAMBUF, 100 proof, bringing you nothing but the truth. That was our deep dive into architecture. That was lesson 4, programming and analysis. We just got through this. KAMBUF. Big amens to all of you. We building a nation up in here, and it's also 100 proof. We about to build a nation of KAMBUF. This is KING-KAMBUF, 100 proof, bringing you nothing but the truth. I like to say amen, Godspeed, portal us to our land. I'm sitting up here swinging big bats. I'm hitting big stats. I'm knocking balls out the park. I gives a fuck. This is how I rock. Go ahead, pitch me the ball. I bet you I'll smash it. I'll put this puppy into the parking lot. Mastic. I don't give a crap about what you think. I'm swinging left and right to this day. Bink. 62 home runs, I'm still swinging. I'm about to knock it out the park, and I mean it. It's the nation of KAMBUF. It's KING-KAMBUF, 100 proof, bringing you nothing but the truth. Oh man. Oh man. Godspeed to KAMBUF. The nation of KAMBUF. Oh man.